Okay, and I think we're up and running. Let's kill the music off, and then we will get cracking. Good evening, everyone. Just want to double check before we get going. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Fantastic. Okay. Perfect. So, first things first. Very, very warm welcome to the last town hall of the year. Um, we obviously started doing these around the middle of the year, and things sort of slowed down a little bit because I had a child. Kind of takes a little bit of priority there. Um, so what we are going to do is just double check that everything's working. I've got a couple of people telling me that the town hall isn't hearing Twitch. So I'm going to see if I can broadcast that. Not sure how well that's going to work, but we'll try it anyway. That's fine. They are not going to be able to hear Twitch because what's this? Twitch sounds are working in the town hall. It's not working. What's not working, Jimbo? Open your mic and tell me. No? Fine. Well, I mean, everyone can hear me on Twitch. That is the primary place that we're going to be kicking things off. So that's it. I can hear Twitch just fine, perfectly. Wild echo. You're probably getting an echo because I'm also broadcasting through. I'm broad. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Echoing through Jimbo. No, it's probably not through Jimbo. It is probably echoing through Discord. So let me mute that there, and MNC just to confirm that's fixed it. Any luck? Oh, everyone's gone quiet now. Cool. Right, everyone's saying that they can hear me, so I'm going to press on. Wonderful. Okay, so we have a pretty packed agenda tonight. Originally, I think I put the meeting in for maybe a couple of hours, but we're just going to see how we get on and go from there. That's fine. I did hear your music when you stopped it. Excellent. That's fine. We're all working then, as far as I'm concerned. Everyone that's here can hear me on Twitch, and that is all that matters. So, agenda. There is a top secret on the very top of the agenda. It's not really top secret, but you're all here, so you get to find out something firsthand. We're then going to look at the server statistics for the period of 2025. It's been a really busy year, as I think a lot of you that have been here for a little while can see. Then we've got a quick snapshot of the economy. It's mainly going to be sort of just a piece there to sort of show where we're at the end of the year, so we can compare it going through next year. Every 6 months, we tend to take a bit of a snapshot and sort of see what's going on. Then the big chunk of the presentation is the feature recap. So I've gone through and I've pulled out month by month all of the features that we've released through 2025. So for anyone that's relatively new here, it might teach you something new. For those that have been here for a little while, we can just sort of like look back and sort of celebrate what we've got out, what's being used, what isn't being used. Then we're going to move on to a roadmap preview for 2026, which is what I think most people are probably most interested to sort of see. Then to wrap up the last couple of bits, we've got the branding and the website update, which I think is pretty much rolled out everywhere. You're sort of seeing the new branding now on the stream that you're watching. You would have seen it rolled out across Discord and places like that. So, yep, that's there. And then finally, what we'll do is just head back to the Discord stage, and then I will invite people to come on and ask questions or say what they want to say, and then hopefully I can work out what's echoing and what's not echoing. So we'll wait and see. Cool. So This is being presented on Twitch. You're all here, so you know that. It's going through Settlers TV on Twitch. All of the QA is going to be taken in the Townhall channel at the end. We're not going to be taking questions throughout. It's quite a busy agenda, so I just want to make sure that we can get through everything. So if you've got anything that you think you might want to ask, please write it down. And then what we'll do at the end is sort of pull everyone in to come up and talk. It's always good to sort of hear people. Some people for the first time, other people, are familiar faces, those that sort of lurk out in the chat and things like that. Okay, so the top secret. I think I'm seeing 54 viewers here, give or take. So here is your top secret that I think you all deserve. So by turning up tonight, we're going to give you all a couple of goodies, I guess. Some of you have already seen this because I've been developing them on the live streams that I've been pushing out through the channel and things like that. So we've got Settlers colors using the new branding, container skins, XS through to XXL. We've got a container hub skin, which has got the little Settlers logo on it as well. And then finally just the Settlers programming board, just to sort of wrap that up, give a little bit of variety. So I'm hoping that everyone's going to be here for at least the 60 minutes. I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible, just to make sure that everybody's on. And yeah, we'll get going and we'll get into the meat of it. So 2025 server statistics, right? So starting off with the numbers. 1,415 total players. That is an absolutely phenomenal amount, right? That is looking back at where we sort of started, sort of really recording this stuff December last year. We had 50 players last December, 50 players, and look at where we are now, right? You can see just looking at the chart, right? The growth has been absolutely astronomical. So much so that we have gone from running on a laptop, which was running out of my office in the house at the time, to now obviously running out of a data center in Germany on a fairly beefy enterprise machine that we've seen and we've proven can run up to about 186 people concurrently. We would like to obviously try and see where that takes us and see if it will go any further. But time will tell, I think we get peaks and troughs with the game. There's new games coming out all the time. There's people dropping in and dropping out. So I'm not going to rule out getting back to those numbers. I think that we will definitely see them because my dual universe is timeless. It's a persistent universe where people can sort of come back to over time. So yeah, we'll see where we end up next year. And then the player registrations through 2025 is 1,369. So you can really sort of see the gap between where we started and where we are now. I think it really sort of kicked off around sort of the July, August time, which is to really be expected when sort of the close of the MMO was happening. We had a lot of people joining in then. Other than that, it's been a fairly steady trickle, but coming through sort of September, October, it's been great, and it's still growing, right? It's still growing month on month. We've had a couple of quiet periods, but nothing to really sort of grumble about. We're still seeing a constant flow of new players as well as existing and returning players, which is really exciting. We're seeing people coming across, trying the server, having been on other servers. Some people are staying, some people are going back, but ultimately all counts towards the statistics, so that's where we are. And then the the stat that is a real pinch me moment is the players that have actually logged in. It's all well and good having all of these player registrations and all of these total players, but we've had 1,397 players that actually logged into the server throughout that period. Right, that's not just them registering an account and never coming back. Right, that is them joining the server, dropping down. And if you look at Haven, I'm sure the number of territories there is probably going to be very similar to that. It's absolutely insane. And then just sort of looking at the last 3 months, we're looking at the sort of current period as opposed to the full year. We've had 873 players log in over the last 3 months. And that is through the release of PAX Day, that's through the release of Battlefield, the new COD, and all of the other games, you know, that are going out at the moment. And we've seen some of the more prolific characters going off and playing those other games. But to sort of retain over 50%, well over 50% of that total number of players, just shows that people are going to keep coming back, right? They're going to dip in, they're going to come in, pay their taxes, see what the new features are, and it's just gonna keep going and going, I think. So moving on, a snapshot of the economy, and these numbers always blow people's minds a little bit, just because they look a little bit crazy, a little bit ridiculous, but um, total quanta in wallets is at 61.4 billion. That's an absolutely astronomical number, but you split that over the 1,415 players, and the average is actually not that high, really. So it's pretty healthy. It's growing at a steady pace. It's not inflating too much from what we see. There's no immediate reason to sort of raise taxes or anything like that. Everybody will be pleased to know, especially Cool Iced Tea, because I'm not seeing that tax demon at market zero again. Then we've got total quanta in the organization wallets. So this is just kind of a bit of a breakout. 18.6 billion. So I know that a couple of the organizations are the ones that have held plasma for a while. I know Gambo could be a good portion of that, with the Hadron wallet and everything that's sort of coming out of his factory with those things. But again, there's nothing particularly alarming here that we sort of look at and think, oh my god, it's really inflating at a bad pace. The growth has been steady, the economy growth has been steady, and we've seen the numbers go up as we've released things like missions, you know, the tasks and things like that to sort of change up where we started. Originally, we were pushing a lot of the quanta into the game through the NPCs, but we've managed to control it a lot better over the last sort of few months and since the mission terminal release, where we've stopped those people that are creating two accounts, two alts that were just flying from Alioth to Jago or Alioth to Tioma and back to just continuously pump those funds into the game at sort of a 60 to 100 mil rate a day. So just moving forward then, the ore totals. This probably isn't going to mean a lot to most people because I think everyone gets a fairly steady trickle flow of ores and things like that. But there are, I'm not even, 6 billion litres of tier 1 ore. I'm sure there's probably a really fancy literage terminology for that. You can all discuss that, but we'll come back to that. And then one that's a little bit surprising to me is the tier 2 ore, which is not as much as I thought it was going to be, actually. 1.8 billion litres. You know, since everybody can get those sanctuary tiles and tier 2 is kind of like the pathway into the higher tiers, I sort of saw that being a little bit more. But then you compare that to the tier 3. Tier 3 is is 871 million litres. Tier 4, 303, and then tier 5 is 161. And yes, Knuckle, you may very well have 10%. I think Eresion was a big contributing factor to parts of this ore pool. And I am keeping tabs on it since we've taken out the Eresion tiles to sort of see how that's impacted it, because it is obviously going to mean that there is potentially going to be a lot less ore coming in. So yeah, all in all, there are some people, and I'm not showing names or anything like that at the bottom. There are a couple of people that have got absolutely insane wallets. You can see one there that is well over 3.5 billion. I'm going to let you theorize and whatever else as to who that may be. It's probably not who you think it is. But I guess what it shows is that there aren't really too many people that have massive wallets, right? I think a billion wallet for someone that's been playing for over a year is quite reasonable. And you'll see sort of coming towards the right side of the graph that there's very few people that have got stacks of quanta. So it's coming in, it's being spent, it's being circulated. What is the x-axis? Creation time. It is. So from left to right, you've got the earliest players along to the right, which are the newer players. Cool. Okay. So, feature recap. Arguably the best bits of what makes us who we are. I think most people play here because of the tweaks and the features and things like that we've released. So I'm gonna just get straight into it. So January 2025 was when we added the blueprint uploader to the website. So that was the function where everybody can sort of now go onto the website and upload those JSON files, and it sends you the email. We will probably make a bit of an update to that. We've had a bit of feedback recently that the instructions to importing the blueprints isn't particularly clear. It has been heard, it hasn't been ignored. So when we come to the end of the presentation, you'll sort of understand where that probably comes into play a bit. So we'll make sure that that's covered. And January was actually the month that we added a region, sort of talking about it on the last slide. So a region, for those that aren't aware, is the first full atmospheric and space PvP planet. We obviously never saw that in the MMO, and that was something that we sort of strived to push into the game, to sort of see it, proof it, see how it works. And we have tweaked it over time. We started off with I'm not going to say a low gravity, but it was suboptimal. And we've tweaked it so the atmospheric PvP plays a lot better. But PvP has been quite quiet recently, which is why we obviously took the Arisian ore pools out of the equation, because it was meant to be a sort of highly contested, highly fought after place. It may come back in the future. We may see something else. So then we have the the first NPC, which was Warren Buffett, which I think a lot of you here may remember. Give us a yes in the chat if you do. Good old Warren Buffett, who is now subsequently retired. So Warren Buffett was our sort of proof of concept. He was at market zero and he bought ore at random, but he was also voice acted. So we used AI, the great tool that it is, to basically voice act Warren Buffett as if he was in the game and he was actually purchasing ore and things like that. So that was our first real proof of concept with things like that. And I've got to say, they were the golden days with the NPCs, seeing people logging in and trading across the ores and things like that. God, there were so many bugs, but it was really a great time. And then back in January, we actually purchased the larger physical server, which is the one that still sits next to me, which is still turned on. I've not turned it off since. Which is there for growth in the future, I guess. We'll just have to see what the future brings. We don't know much about server meshing or if anything like that's possible. So never say never, but it may come back. It may be used for something else. Then we added the Haven Parts Trader NPCs. This was kind of like a little bit of a double-pronged thing. So on the Haven map, you'll see that there's exclamation marks scattered across the planet. And we added some NPCs there that sort of buy parts from you. I believe some of them are voice acted. So if you haven't heard the voice acting on it and you want to sort of go and see what it's all about, pop over there, sell them some parts. They're only basic parts and things like that. But it might just give you a bit of a funny experience. And then we released the original Settlers Showcase video, which was the first sort of like trailer, I guess, if you want to call it that, just to sort of show all of the features off that are there. I have included a link. I'm not going to click and play it now, but I will share these slides around at the end. So if anybody wants to go back and sort of see what was on it, where we started, and what the hype of January was, you can click the link and see what's going on. The monthly lottery, which we still get over 100 participants for every month without fail, was introduced in January. That's when we got that up and running. And then January was the month that we added the Buy Me a Coffee support. So this is more of a sort of collective thank you to everybody that is still supporting us, that donates regularly. I've mentioned this before. I mentioned this at the 1 year mark when we sort of hit the anniversary, but we are at a point, a very lucky point, where the people that have donated have effectively allowed us to run for free, and have also allowed us to sort of bank up enough to run the server without paying a penny for at least another year, right? So I just want to give a massive hand to everybody that has contributed. It helps a lot. Jimbo and I haven't actually taken a penny of this. It sits in the bank. It sits there for rainy days when we need to top the server up and pay the Hetzner bill. So there we go. Cool. Right, moving forward then. So February. February was a big month. It was the month that we released the uncommon to exotic variants on all of the elements, and then the plasmas 11 through to 18. This was probably my largest spreadsheet project that I have ever done since I started work or since I was born. But this is something that I felt was missing from the main game. You know, everybody had basic wings and basic adjusters and everything else, and it just didn't really feel like there was any reason to sort of progress, and it really sort of stagnated after you'd got those parts on your ship. But with the release of the new variants of all of the elements, it allows people to push that boundary more, you know, reduce the amount of adjusters, reduce the amount of brakes and wings and things like that, to then build new sort of variants and varieties of ships. And we're seeing a lot of these ships coming out sort of more recently, where they are a lot larger, but they're using a lot less elements. And they are only marginal changes, but if you have, you know, those sort of advanced or even rare variants, it's the difference of having to use 3 wings instead of 4, and it can just tidy some of the designs up. The next fun one was the Alioth Quarry, which is still there. It's a point of interest on the map if anybody hasn't been over there. That had the original traders, so where you could go over and sort of sell your ores and things like that. That was the daily drip feed. And the notorious purple shield, which is the no-fly zone, which I know has murdered many of you in the chat. I saw Isaac posting here. Isaac was the first real victim to this, I think, when we were tweaking this. So yeah, it's still there for anyone that's not been there. Do not fly into the purple shield. It is death. And yes, as Grevlin's just said, it also introduced the fart of God, which is that horrible, horrible explosion noise that you hear when you leave the render range of the quarry or any base shield that is tagged as an NPC construct. So yeah, that is there. Then we moved all of the server guides across to Notion, which might seem like a little silly one, right? But Notion's still being used today. That's where we host the sort of guides.settlers.gg domain. And I want to give a little bit of a shout out here to Cosmic as well. Cosmic, I don't know if you're in the chat, but Cosmic actually rewrote the guides page and tidied it up and made it pretty in a way that I just simply couldn't. I can write the content, I can explain the features that are going on. I am not great at documenting and formatting documents and things like that. So he's really done a great job of that, and hopefully it's helped everybody to get those features up and running. Cool. Okay. March. So Warren Buffett officially retired. He is now in the nightclub, which we haven't opened for a little while, but I'm sure that we can open that at some point over Christmas. He sits in the I think he's in the cigar lounge. I could be very mistaken, but yeah, he's basically just a frozen relic in time at this point. He's going to be there forever. People can go and visit him and yeah, go and see him. And then all the way back in March was the first time that we actually added server loaded custom voxels. And I believe, and I could be mistaken here, but I'm going to claim this, we were the first server to introduce those custom voxels. We've had the cyan, we've had the pink, we've had the purple voxels for many moons, and I think only recently is when we sort of added a few more. We've had the camos for a long time, but adding in those new plastics and the new Lumis that everybody was so excited for, the the actual green and the actual blue. I hope they've gone down well and they've been well received and you're using them. So yeah, we can just expand and expand on that. So what I may do into next year is take a couple of specific colors if anybody's interested in anything really tailored, and throw that on. They're quite straightforward to do now. We've built a bit of a workflow for adding them, and this is a great time to shout Jimbo out, right? Without Jimbo and sort of actually coding the server loading plugin for the assets, the custom voxels, the skins, and things like that, most of the stuff that we've got on the server today just simply would not be possible. So give him a hand, give the man a hand, because it's a team effort, right? He's just so on top of all of the development and everything else, and I give him a lot of shit, and he just puts up with me. So well done, Jimbo. Cool. So March, we also migrated the server for the. You're going to correct me here. Second time. Maybe third, from Windows to Linux, which we tested for a little while and we found to be drastically more performant, and a lot more stable than the Windows solution to the servering. So that is, yeah, that's where we still are today. We're running Linux on the server over in Germany. Repair kits, these are a bit contentious because I think some people love them and some people just think they're absolutely stupid. But the repair kits were added as a stopgap to basically prevent your element from completely blowing up. So if you have a exotic part, or something like that you might not necessarily be able to get your hands on the plasma for, a repair kit, whilst expensive, gives you that opportunity to repair it, fix it up, to save it being destroyed. So they're there. They're at the Alioth scrapyard or junkyard. I can't remember exactly what the point of interest is called. But if you've not been over there, go and have a little look. It's another NPC that sells. We've kind of left it in as a bit of proof of concept. We could add these to the markets, but it takes away from the fun. So counterphase engines, one of the things that everybody loves. If it's not the counterphase engines, it's the Vulkan engines. This was the first time that we sort of introduced the ability to have those XL Atmo engines. Sure, they are just engines that are reskinned to space engines, but they just work so well, right? Why they never did that is just, it's quite baffling to me. But we see them all the time. I think it's probably one of the most used elements that we've added in. So yeah, that's a great little addition. And then we added in the fix with the refuel tool to the fuel tank bug. This plagued us for many moons when we were sort of setting up the server and sort of coming in, because somehow people were getting like points of a piece of fuel stuck. So this just clears it. Then we released favorite containers, which I thought that was more recently, but apparently it's been in since March, which again was one of the most used features, and I think everybody loves that. We will give a shout out to TTV because it was inspired on their favorite containers, and Commander Reigns for suggesting it. I don't like giving that guy credit because his head's big enough. But yeah, the favorite containers is yeah, it's a great feature. If you've not used it, give it a go. Then the custom chat window, which is Jimbo's love child. What possessed him to do this, I don't know. We were fiddling around with it, and then I logged on the next day, and we had a custom chat window with the replies and with some emotes and things like that. So that I mean, that's just awesome, right? The fact that you can reply to things. Then the last part for March is with thanks to Van Herk. I'm not sure if you're here. Is the Hohenthal racetrack. I think that's how you pronounce it anyway. Which is still to date one of the most played racetracks. Right? It's it's great. Like, people are still loving it. They're still trying to get those sort of like top times on the board, and I've seen the board change recently, so I know that people are still doing it, and people are just, loving that. Cool. April. April, the month of the Hello Kitty print voxels for April Fools. So this was a very limited release for April Fools, and I know that there are still a few Hello Kitty voxels that are sat in containers. There have been a few that have been destroyed, but they are in circulation. You can't get them anymore. They're not going to be re-released next year. So if you see the Hello Kitty voxels, which were a joke, and you want to purchase them, you're going to have to find someone that's got them, one of those original players. So that's there. One of the big features that I think many people don't either understand or know about is the base shields. So there's a couple of parts to the base shields here. The first part here was shifting the lockdown timer from being one that is selected by the defender to being 24 hours after somebody has attacked it. This was a plus and a minus to a lot of people, because what it basically did was broke, in a good way, the time zone locking. So what we found is that people with the alien cores were setting the timers in just a completely unrealistic time for anybody in Europe to go and attack, which made it very one-sided. But with the shift in the logic, it means that if you go and attack the core, you have a 24-hour window from that point to basically prepare, and then after the 24 hours, the lockdown timer goes down and you can go and attack it. We saw it actually in the kill feed channel earlier. Someone's obviously done that. But what it basically meant was that the alien cores were changing hands more frequently, which is something that they failed drastically with on the MMO. There was obviously one core group that was holding it, and they were setting the timers in a way that they weren't always accessible. I'm not going to say we fixed it, but we've sort of added our spin to that, so people can go and attack them, and they can actually stand the chance of getting the plasma. So then the next part is the settlers info panel, which is obviously in there. It shows how many players are online. It's got the blueprint tool and things like that inside of it. It's just a little nice to have inside, so you can sort of see how many people are online while you're inside the game. Originally we were going to sort of try and work out how to bake the guides and things like that in there, but Notion just does a better job, right? It's just easier, it's more accessible, it's responsive, and we can't really achieve that inside the game. So that's potentially going to develop a little bit throughout 2026, certainly with things like the reputation system, which I think is a little bit later on, because that is currently the only place that you can actually see the reputation. So the next big one is the custom asteroid spawner. I can't tell you how many murders we had with the NQ logic for spawning asteroids. We changed it, we tweaked it, we could not wrap our head around the logic and what they had set up, so we wrote our own. And what that basically allowed us to do is to define per planet what tiers of asteroid are available. So it means that we can lower the tiers around Alioth, and then around Jago and those outer planets, we might have more sort of rare and exotic asteroids. Pushes people further afield to actually go and mine them, while just sort of balancing it a little bit. Which led very nicely then into the asteroid belts, which I know a lot of people here are using. So the belter stations and the asteroid belts were a bit of a pipe dream. Like, whenever you go to an asteroid, it's very underwhelming, I think, when you go to them, and oh, that's interesting. I don't know how that's happened so fast. When you go to them, and basically, there's only one asteroid there. That just wasn't really that interesting, I don't think. So we made it in a way that you could sort of go over to these asteroid belts, and you can see them render in, you can see them spawn, and it just looks immense if you've never been there. So you can go up to the belts, and just sort of hop between those asteroids. And those asteroids cycle every 3 days or so, I believe, which basically means that you'll constantly get a new pool of ore. You'll get different asteroids and things like that. And then moving on to the last point is one of, I think, the funnest events that has that's been happening is the Great Settlers Easter egg hunt. Now, I know a lot of people here will remember this event. A lot of people got incredibly frustrated by this event, um, but it was to this date, it was just one of the best events. So, for those that weren't here at the time, Jimbo hid a load of Easter eggs, different colors, different shapes and sizes around the map. And like you said, you have never seen so many adults flying around the planet trying to find Easter eggs. It's literally I think it threw everybody back to the childish days of running around the house trying to find the eggs. But there were people that were doing it for hours, and I can't remember exactly who it was that found the golden egg first. But that golden egg, it plagued so many people. Um, it was 666, was it? There we go. So I think that is definitely something that we will look to do next year as well. It was just a great event, right? We can mix it up. We can put them in different places this time, and yeah, see how it's going on. Cool. May looks thin, but yeah, purple cyan and pink voxels. This is when we added in the steels and the plastics and things like that. So that was a big one. I think we also added in the camo voxels at that point, but I must have missed that out. And then we had our first really big server event, and this is where we found out that we needed a bit more oomph on the server. And this was the May the 4th fly-in. And at the time, the numbers don't seem particularly high. We had 100 ships and 60 players visiting. So sort of comparing that to where we are today, you can really sort of see the growth curve and where we came from. Certainly, if you visited the last fly-in, which was the Halloween one. May was actually when we introduced those town hall events. What you're sitting on now, and that's when we started pulling out the stats and started following how the server's growing and things like that. And it's also when I added the anti-tag bot, you know, that annoying bot where someone tries to at Luna or at Jimbo and it tells you off. Of course, I've added this in here just as a joke, but it's certainly saved us a lot of headache. So we've actually got the link to the first town hall as well. So if anybody wants to go back and sort of see what we were talking about then and where we are now, again at the end of the presentation, I'll share the link out and everyone can go and have a look. June. So June is when we added the vegetation, which is the nano craftable bushes and trees and those big shiny like ice glacier things that you've probably seen. You can see the full collection of what's available over at the Alioth Honeycomb Library with all of the custom ones and all of the already in-game ones. So if you haven't done that, go over and have a look. You can make them with reward discs. So if you've given up collecting your reward discs and you want to make some trees, you can either obviously buy them or grab them from the top floor of Market Zero. This is where we moved the physical server to my new office, which had aircon, which was needed. It was running 24/7. It was getting warm, and I needed somewhere to keep the server cool. So that was there. And then that was also the month that we added the ability to place and use the industry units on ships. And this is a really good point to sort of shout out, right? Because we've seen this much more recently. A perfect example of where this has worked perfectly is Captain Harlock's ship. And I know that he's here with the Arastra that was released the other day. I think what it does more than anything, obviously, Captain Harlock, you're a wizard with voxels, right? But what it's really done is shown the capabilities of adding the industry units to the ships. The fact that you can make a full industry vessel, and you could technically, with the asteroid belts, go and live in space. Right, you could go and live in space, you could go and jump between the belts, and you could do absolutely everything on the ship of your choosing. So for those that aren't aware that that is a thing, you can build factories, you can make fuel systems and things like that on your ships. So don't discount that if you're a bit stuck on what to do with your interiors and things like that. This was also the month that we added the first anti-cheat flagging system for speed hacking. It kind of just sits and runs in the background. Most people aren't aware that we have this because most people are very fair and honest players. But it's our first real sort of server tooling that allows us to get rid of, or at least find the bad actors that are trying to do things on the server that we wouldn't really want to have. Finn, yes, this is being saved as a VOD, so if you come back to the channel afterwards, it should hopefully save with any luck. Cool. So we then have the June Town Hall and a link. And then coming back to the base shields again, I waffled about this and the way that you can attack it. This is another feature that players aren't aware about that will give them the ability to go into PvP space and mine asteroids more or less safely. I'm going to say more or less because you do kind of have to set it up first. So the base shield construct protection is this is another one of my silly brain waves, but also something that I think NQ probably should have included in the base game. So with the base shields, you can actually park your ships inside of them, inside of the bubble, and they are safe unless the base shield is destroyed. So what that basically means is that you can go out to an asteroid, you can put down a space core with a base shield on it, and you can park your mining ship inside of it, and it's safe, which means you can go about, you can go mining, and yeah, you can basically go and live out your best beta dreams. You know, back in beta you could have those space cores and things like that near the asteroids with the base shields, except this time you can actually protect your mining ships and things like that. So you can park your ships inside, go mining, and then basically if you come out the asteroid and you see that there's someone that's shooting at your shield and things like that, you can go, right, okay, I know that this is going to be unprotected after 24 hours, and then between that sort of time of locking it down and those 24 hours, you can grab your shit and you can get out of there. You can warp out, you can fly away, and obviously unless someone's sat there camping, you know, you can have a safe trip. And then the last thing on here was the open world PvE, which is our alternative to the alien warfare missions, which have caused us a lot of headache because there's a lot of bugs with them. So at the moment, you can go and speak to an NPC. I can't remember exactly where they all are. There's one at Alioth mission pickup. I think there's one up at the spaceport. They're scattered around. Anyway, you can go and speak to them, and you can basically go and take out a little sort of ship with guns and things like that, and you can go and attack other PvE ships. So what happens is you sort of fly over to the points of interest that sort of spawn off the back of the NPCs. It will give you a point, and then all of the ships will spawn in, and then you go and have a shoot up. In short, you can go and have a shoot up. You can collect dog tags, and those dog tags are basically used to turn in for reputation, and they also give some quanta. So you do get paid for going to kill other people's ships. Cool. July. So July was when Territory Warfare was released, which is when we enabled PvP on all of the outer planets. And when I say the outer planets, I mean those that are not inside the big safe zone bubble. To anybody that was here during that period, you will know that it was a little bit bittersweet. I think some people were really excited for it, other people not so much, and yeah, it was an interesting time. But I'm going to work through the list, and we'll come back to that. So July was also the month that we updated the PvE logic. So the NPCs that you battle against, they're now a lot smarter. They're a lot more like actual players. They're programmed in a way where they sort of track you and they sort of understand your movements and things like that. It's never going to be perfect because obviously players are unpredictable, NPCs are coded, but they are quite a good experience. And if you've not tried the open world PvE, I would strongly recommend you to go and give it a go. It was also the point where we introduced the industry management tool, which I know a lot of people here use for their quicker industry setup and for fixing things like the container hubs and whatnot. So this was the copy and paste feature, which I know, like I say, that a lot of people use. I think it really sped up that setup process. We then also updated the registration page with better validation. So this was kind of the point where we just tightened up the guest registration page. We had a couple of problems with people sort of spam creating accounts and things like that. And this was the first time that we really sort of went in and had a look at how we could harden it and make things better. We then rolled back territory warfare. So this was a massive learning experience, I think. I think what it showed us is that players are assholes. Not all of you, some of you. And that mindless killing was all that some people wanted to do. It was meant to be added with the intention of bringing a sort of more based PvP experience. So you could have your territories on the other planets. You could protect them with the base shields, but you would have to defend them. All it turned into was a bit of a shit fest where people would basically go over there with massive PvP ships and just start shooting at absolutely everything. I'm not going to say that something similar is never going to return, because, you know, never say never. But for now, it's certainly staying off, so no one has to panic. What it did bring in, though, was the ability to rework the alien cores. So what we did at this point was add the alien cores around a region. So we've got 2 space and 2 Atmo alien cores, which replaced the original experience from the MMO where they were just hundreds of SU into the void. It brought everything a lot closer to the planet, and obviously introducing atmospheric PvP for alien cores brought in a very different experience. You could technically have things like land vehicles that had weapons on them. But yeah, it just sort of changed the dynamic, and it gave everybody a different way of looking at things. I think this is also when we changed the plasma across to the plasma essence and the plasma sparks and things like that, which meant that instead of getting a particular plasma, you would get a plasma essence, and then you could use that to craft whatever plasma you chose. It made the whole sort of plasma getting experience a lot better, and it gave a different sense of value to those plasma essences, because it meant that you could pick what you wanted rather than having to sort of trade between people that weren't always particularly cooperative. We then also hosted the July Townhall. Again, link at the bottom. You can all have a look at that afterwards. And I need to take a drink quickly, so give me 2 seconds. Perfect. Okay, moving on. August. So August was the midsummer fly-in. So this was our second big flying event, and it was I would say it was probably one of the more successful events that really sort of showed that the community was was sort of coming together now to. Oh, hang on, my microphone's going mad. Are we back in the room? We are back in the room. There we go. Perfect. So it was one of the first events that sort of showed everybody coming together. So the first fly-in was more of a proof of concept. The second fly-in was really when things started to come to life. We saw people building shops and things like that around the fly-in area. We saw people bringing lots of constructs over, and it pretty much started filling up the pads and things like that. And we're going to get loads of spams, but it's fine. That's okay. So then we had the NQ release for the export constructs feature, which was a really bittersweet moment for us. we had a public voxel library prior to this point, which meant that people could VR into that voxel library and they could copy and paste bits out, and it gave them the opportunity to sort of use voxel sets and things like that that they wouldn't necessarily have otherwise had access to. But with the release of that export construct, it meant that we had to remove the voxel library, the public voxel library, because anybody that wanted to retain rights to their voxel sets and things like that meant they no longer had any control over it. So we're going to give a bit of a thumbs up to NQ for that one. But that was a bit of a defining moment because it caused a bit of a stink for us. So yeah. Then it's very outdated now looking back at it, but we released the official server trailer in August, which got a lot of traction. It reached quite a lot of places, actually. I think there was a lot of engagement on Reddit, and we saw quite a hike in players off of the back of the server trailer, where they saw all of the new features and things like that. Then we added the territory hacking unit and the weapon tool for AVA combat. Again, this is more sort of a region PvP focused things. But the territory hacking unit effectively allows you on a region to run up to a territory unit if you've blown your way through to it or you've got access to it, and take it over. So you can take someone else's territory if they haven't defended it, if they've not got a construct or anything protecting it. And then the weapon tool, which started off as a bit of a meme, which Jimbo posted in the NQ Discord, and then really turned into something feasible. The AVA combat is, I kind of like to describe it a little bit like Quake 3, I guess. It's very fast paced. There's not really any hitboxes or anything like that. The hit markers are okay. Sound effects are really cool. But it just adds that extra layer of depth where if you're hacking someone's territory and you're on the ground and things like that, you can run around each other, you can shoot each other, and you can then stop the hack if you manage to kill the other player and things like that. So it was a bit of a stop measure there. But what that also brought in was the arena base shields to allow AVA combat, like shooting arenas and things like that on the safe planets. So if you deploy an arena base shield and you're inside it and you've got the weapon tool, it effectively enables PvP inside that small area. So I don't think that there are any that we've really sort of talked about too much, but we did go through a little bit of a point where we were making a couple of these little AVA arenas and things like that. I know that there's a couple that have been added. There's a really cool one that's kind of like a little capture the flag one, that is on Alioth. I can't remember exactly who created it, but that's in the game. There's all sorts of stuff that you can do with it. So then we deployed out the linked container bug fix, which it obviously came after the industry management tool. So you can fix your own linked container bugs. That was again another thing that was really sort of plaguing us. We had a lot of support tickets and things like that, so we had to get that out as soon as possible. And then we had the element swapping tool, which I think someone else put a ticket in for earlier. Hopefully you got that sorted. But this is essentially a point and click tool to allow you to swap an element on your ship, so you can upgrade things from basic to uncommon or vice versa. And yeah, this was our attempt to basically allow players to upgrade their ship without having to pull parts off of it and then put parts on. So you can use the tool, you can swap the elements live, and yeah. And then to wrap up August, that was obviously the period where we had the interview with Loru about the settlers. I think we had quite a lot of engagement through his YouTube, and we did get a couple of new players that sort of came off of the back of that. Loru is obviously an Eve guy through and through, but he did give us the opportunity to obviously he put us on. He put us on. He gave us the opportunity to talk about settlers, and it was it was an experience. The interview's still on YouTube and things like that. I'll share it around somewhere. I didn't put the link in here for some reason, but I'll fish it out. And if anyone wants to have a look, there's a bit of a face reveal for Jimbo and I. So yeah, go and check it out. September. September is when we opened the Settlers BP shop, which is around the close of the MMO as well. So someone mentioning that in there. And that's when NQ obviously released the big blueprint pack. We added those in, so you can go to the Settlers BP shop and you can pick up those blueprints that were released by NQ. This was also the period, and I'm going to get some shit for this, and I'm prepared for it, when we added in the obelisk around Lacobus to kickstart the new system process. And I've put in brackets there that it's still a work in progress. The obelisk is still active, it's still open, it's still live. I think Jonk is the biggest contributor to that. So yeah, when we come to kicking off the new system, I'm sure we can sort something out there for Jonk, unless someone else wants to take the crown. But Sellers was probably September was probably the biggest month for us in terms of sort of upgrades and stability, because we migrated across to the bare metal server. It's the server that everyone's playing on now. It's where we moved over to that. We went from being a home run server to a data center run server. It's an absolute monster of a machine. It's got well over 200 gig of RAM. It's got a shitload of storage on it. It's got an incredible CPU. And it's also expandable. So if in the future we do find that we manage to get to a point where we're eating up all of the RAM drastically quicker than what we are today, we can always upgrade the server. So we're sort of towards the lower end of the memory on there at the moment. We can go all the way up to 2 terabytes, but we'll just have to wait and see with where we get to. September was also a defining month because it was the first time that we added in the anti-cheat tooling to properly detect, flag, and issue automatic bans to players with more than 2 characters. I could go down a massive rabbit hole with this, but I think off the top of my head, we've only had 3 or 4 players that have legitimately been banned for abusing that 2 character system. We've had a couple of false positives, which we've managed to sort out, and they were only false positives because the way that the data was recorded was a bit weird. And Knucklehead was one of those people, if you didn't gather. But what it's basically done is given the server and the community a bit of integrity. We do obviously pride ourselves on making sure that everybody, sort of plays fairly and is on the same level playing field. And if someone's got 9 accounts or 6 accounts or anything like that, we do want to take action on that. We want to make sure that people are following the rules. I don't think that 2 accounts is too unreasonable. But we are, as far as I'm aware anyway, the only server that is proactively making sure that this is an enforced rule. There are other servers that have character limits and things like that. I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole here, but coming back to it, we have this system in place to make sure that everybody gets a fair game. If someone's got 10 accounts, 15 accounts, and they're accruing quanta faster than anybody else, it just ruins the economy and it ruins everybody else's experience. So we will continue to uphold that rule. Okay, so the next one is the Vulcan engines, which I think is the favourite of, I'm going to call him out here, Loaded, who has obviously used those Vulcan engines quite recently to re-release the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter and things like that. But they're just cool, right? Like, they're absolutely awesome. They're, for those that aren't aware, they are Atmo and Space engines that use the rocket skin, but also have the rocket sound effect. So when you take off with a Vulcan engine, it does an half punch. It's really, really quite satisfying. So yeah, the Vulcan engines were a massive hit. It's nice to see that people are using the new features and things like that we're adding in. So yeah, it's really cool. And then September, we also released the public market data. So Enjoy blowing people's ears out. We released the public market data dashboard. It allows people to go in and sort of look up prices and things like that and see how many are on the market. There's a link in there. I think the link is also somewhere on the Discord. If it's not, I should probably add it. But there's also a thing at the bottom of that which allows people to check out item IDs and things like that for the tiny factories. So yeah, make sure you check that out if you haven't already. October. So dynamic missions. I think everybody at this point knows what the dynamic missions are and the mission terminal, which is to date the most successful feature that we've released onto the server. So this is where we initially released the hauling, the industry, and the task systems. And I do need to give a big shout out here to Sardini, who helped with a lot of the equations and the calculations and the maths around things like the rewards, the time-based rewards, and everything in between. So if you don't think you get enough money, you can blame Sardini, but otherwise, again, just a massive thank you to him for helping out on that. It was a massive project. I wasn't about at the time, so he kept Jimbo afloat on this and really sort of helped him to get this out. October was also the month that we added the StreamCord Pro function, where you're getting the automated streamer notifications now inside of Discord. I think this was really the kickoff for we had a few streamers on the server before, but what this did was really brought the visibility of those streamers to the forefront. People started engaging with them a lot more. It helped to sort of build the community and really show the community that we are, right? People were playing together, they were doing events and things like that, which was really cool. It was also our 1 year anniversary, official 1 year anniversary, where we had wiped back on the previous October and made it to another October with some pretty good growth. So the next thing on here isn't something that's public anymore because I pulled it down. But this is where I started digging into the planet pipelines and how the planets are structured and put together, so we can start looking into creating actual custom planets. Obviously, a region is by definition a custom planet, but what it actually is fairly just reskinned. We don't really want to do that with the new system. We could push that out, it'd be very quick. It just really wouldn't be that satisfying, sort of going to the new system and seeing the planets that already exist. It's just not going to give the same experience. Now we're going to get a lot of spam in the chat, and this is probably where the bot's going to blow up. So the final event that we really hosted, sort of flying wise, was the Haunting Halloween Flying event, which I believe was the first event that any server had done where they had actually tweaked around with the atmosphere and things like that. For those that weren't there, we changed the Alioth atmosphere to have a bit of an orange pumpkin-y glow or a hue, and it was different. It was so different. I think everybody was really shocked. They were flying into the planet, they were flying out of the planet, just to really sort of capture all of those sort of cinematics and things like that. And what it basically did was proof that we cool Ice Tea, you've got a lot of screenshots, share them around just so people can see what went on, because it was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. And we also brought pumpkins in as well. So if you see people that have got pumpkins, they were the people that basically attended the fly-in and participated in the events and things like that. We do like to try and give away sort of custom elements and bits like that when we host these events. So in the future, if you're at any of these events, check out the events channels and things like that, and yeah, get yourself some custom elements. November. So November was again a massive defining month, where we released the salvage missions, which was our take on replacing or bettering the rec system from NQ. Again, they went into the mission terminal. It's also when we created our first completely custom element, functional custom element, which is the salvage bot, which is called Clive, for those that don't know, to mass recycle elements and also voxels. So what that basically meant is that anybody that's salvaging can go out, they can store all of those parts, and then they can run those parts through the salvage bot to essentially give it gives you your parts back, right? So you can get those parts, you can feed those parts back into your industry system. If you're not much of an industry person, this is a really good way for you to go and get parts fairly easily, I'm going to say. So you can go out, salvage the wrecks, repair the elements just so they've got one life left, and then you can feed them through the salvage bot, and it gives you all of your bits back. So then, as this is blowing up in the chat, introduction of the Twitch drops and the settler signals to reward the players and the content creators. Now, I know that there's a few creators in the mix here, so I'm just going to shout this out, right? This feature is something that we wanted to design and develop for you guys. I very heavily took inspiration from the Twitch Rivals system for Rust. Rust gives out custom skins for watching streamers and things like that, and I just felt as though it translated so nicely into the way that we run things here, right? We've got some amazing content creators that are pushing out content really regularly, and what it does is gives us the ability to give them something back to everybody that's watching, right? It's led so nicely into the December event and things like that, and I know that everybody has just been absolutely glued to all of the custom skins over December. It also gives you obviously a bit of quanta and a few talent points. They're a little Brucey bonus. It's giving you some titles and things like that, but ultimately it's paved a pathway to allow us to offer more in the future, so we can engage more with streamers, more with content creators. I've not got the stats in front of me, but I know categorically from a couple of days ago we've had over 11,000 hours watched across those content creators just so far throughout that event. 11,000 hours. It's insane. Absolutely insane. So November was also the time that we replaced or even removed, sorry, the redundant NPCs. So there were a lot of NPCs that were littered at markets and things like that, which were originally going to be used for like mission pickups and mission drop-offs when we were sort of going down the path of using the NPCs for missions. They were obviously made redundant by the mission terminal. So yeah, you would have saw the NPC numbers drop in the settlers info panel if you had a look in there. That's just sort of explaining it because I don't think that it was communicated particularly clearly. So then the one of the smaller features that that was pushed out that I think a lot of people were really happy about was where you could click on the elements on a blueprint to select it on a market or select it on an industry unit. And when we were developing this, we thought that this would, just be a little fun feature and things like this. But everyone went absolutely nuts over this, and I just don't understand it. I don't understand it, but I feel like everybody else loved it. So yeah, there's potentially going to be a few other bits that we can do with that in the future. So consider that just a bit of a taster, I guess. Cool. And then the final one for November, which we got a lot of stick for some reason, and I don't really know why, was the release of the construct hailing. So you can, when you're out flying around and things like that, you can select, identify a construct, and you can hail somebody. Now, this was originally added for, our attempt to try and encourage consensual PvP and piracy. And of course, there's nothing that we can do to stop someone just shooting you. But in the interest of trying to add that in, we have seen a couple of actual cases where this has worked really well, where a pirate has hailed someone and instead of shooting them, they've taken a ransom, which means everybody wins. Someone keeps their ship, someone doesn't get blown up, and someone gets paid. And I feel like, certainly in the state of the things at the moment, that is as close as we can get to consensual PvP. There may be, and I'm not committing to this, I don't even think it's in the roadmap bits. There may be a point in the future where we alter reputation and things like that based on people not hailing people before they get shot. And I call it consequences of the project, consequences as the feature, where in my mind, we could potentially at some point one day have a system that works a little bit like Eve, where if you are one of those bad guys, there's a Concord or sentries, as we would have on here, around the planets that just shoot on sight anybody that has negative reputation that is a pirate. Never say never. It's a bit of a pipe dream. I'm not going to labour Jimbo with that because we've got other stuff that's going on. But yeah, that's something to consider. And then finally leading to where we are now. So we have a couple of new plastic variants. So we've got glow stick, we've got the olive drab, and then the sea green. Sea green is the settlers color for anybody that is interested. So if you want to sort of match that up with the new container skins and things like that, sea green. Don't ask why it's sea green. That's what Google told me. And then that is also when we added the green and the blue Lumi glass. Not the horrible lime or the cyan ones or anything like that, the actual green and blue. So they've only been in for a couple of weeks now, I think, but I've already seen them used in a lot of places, and we've had a lot of thank yous from people that have always wanted them. So it's a nice little touch. And that is also the point where we removed the original pools. So I've talked about this before. PvP's flat at the moment, very, very flat. So yeah, there doesn't really feel like a purpose of us having these inflated ore pools on a region when nobody's fighting over them. All it was basically doing was throwing a load of ore into the game. It was buckling the economy, and it just wasn't serving a purpose. So it had to go. Might come back in the future. We'll see if people start shooting each other. And then the one that I've sort of touched on is the Twitch Christmas creator drops. So 13 unique element skins, 13 creators. It's just been an absolute blast, right? I can't talk about this enough. You see me posting about it all the time, so I'm not going to bore you to death. But let's just say that this is just the start. There is a little bit of a spoiler that I can give here that I've only told a few people. We are actually having the Twitch Christmas Creator Drops event featured in both the next NQ newsletter and also on the Dual Universe social media platform. So this is hopefully going to create a little bit of traction. We are now running the event until the 9th of January, just to sort of account for the extra time and things like that, that them sending out the announcements and things like that will give. So yeah, 9th of January, everything's been extended a little bit. It gives you all a little bit more time to get the drops if you've not been about. So yeah, make sure that you're still tuning into your favorite creators. Right. 2026 roadmap preview. Should I keep talking or should I make Jimbo do this? Everybody can vote in the chat. Cool. Go on. Go on. Okay, I will go on. So, 2026 roadmap preview. Subject to change. Emphasis on those words there. This is not us committing to it. This could change. Here we go. So, no 1K. There is absolutely no AI integration because AI is shit. Anyway, talent updates. Talent updates is something that I am going to confirm as something that is in the works at the moment. So a couple of people have given a couple of suggestions on where we could add new talents, what we can upgrade and things like that. So what you're going to see, the two core ones are the basic building product refining and the basic building product productivity. So that is your brick, it's your carbon fiber, it's your marble and things like that. Whether NQ missed them originally or not, I don't know. But there are no talents that give you anything else for that. So they are going to be added. It will give you your boosts and things like that. So yeah, that's all coming. Bit of an odd one. I don't know whether it's going to be used or not, but also under the weapon trees, there's no talent set for the stasis weapon. For those that have never touched stasis, it's basically a gun that slows down the opponent's ship. It adds like a debuff effect, cuts the engine speed and things like that. It was never included, but I feel like it could be something that could add a bit of a new, interesting dynamic. So I'm going to see how I can get those in. One that needs to go in sooner rather than later is the gunner module excess capacity handling. So we've got capacity handling for small, medium, and large seats. We've got it for the cockpits and we've got it for the other PvP seat, but we added the gunner module excess after. Which meant that there was never a talent set that was applied to that particular element. So I'm going to retrospectively go in and add that to just make the excess ships a little bit more viable. One that was suggested the other day was the maintenance unit operations and handling, and that was a suggestion from Mr. Ryan Pride himself. So I'm going to have a little look to see how feasible it is. That's not something I'm committing to because it's not something that's been tested yet. But it will be things like a slightly increased range. It will be a speed or time reduction for each of the core sizes. So it should hopefully knock a bit of time off of the maintenance units running if you've got max talents. I've also added at the bottom there improved maintenance unit operations, which will give sort of the standard operations buffs and then a little bit more. It'll probably be an extra 10% by the time that comes through. So that's the talent updates. Then the mission terminal combat missions. So I kind of glossed over the PvE stuff a little bit with the NPCs and whatnot, and the reason I've done that is because the PvE missions are being migrated to the mission terminal to give everybody a better experience. The NPCs work well, right? You can pick up the missions, you can select the difficulties and everything else, but what it doesn't do is make it accessible from anywhere in space, for instance. So we'll be adding a combat tab. I think it's already in there. It's just not active at the moment. Where you'll be able to pick up different difficulty PvE missions around different planets and things like that. And what you'll be able to do is to provisionally create a warp anchor. So one of the biggest problems that we have at the moment is the distance that you have to travel to actually get to the PvE missions. Because Alioth and Madis and Thades have got a huge safe zone around them, you have to travel at least 40 SU outside of those planets to even get to the site of the battle, right? And by the time that you've flown out there, it is just there's something to be desired, right? It's just a shit experience. So we're looking to see whether we can create warp anchors, which will allow you to effectively warp your ship close, not too close to these PvE missions to allow you to get there quicker, which means you can get in, you can shoot, get the dog tags or whatever else, and then get out. The squad panel to allow players to group up, share missions, and more. So when we were looking at the scope of the PvE missions and just sort of like watching Chaos Rifle do it on stream quite frequently and things like that, people were doing PvE missions together. But PvE missions on their own aren't really something that you kind of can do together. So if we want to do the warp anchors and we want to do shared rewards and things like that, we need to introduce something where players can party up, right? We didn't want to call it a party mod. We didn't want to call it a group mod. Squadron just sounds a lot more sort of sci-fi, space-esque. And like I've said here, people can invite each other to the parties, share the missions. When someone picks up a mission, they should hopefully be able to see the warp anchor for that mission or set the warp point, which normally wouldn't have been possible. And there's other tools and tricks and things like that inside where you can see, hopefully anyway, the shield that's on someone's ship, maybe the ship CCS that's remaining. People can tag themselves for various roles and things like that. Jimbo did do a bit of a proof of concept. It kind of works in a very similar way to the Friends panel, but this is something that is happening. We're a little bit into it. We just need to think about it a little more. So yeah, that is something that is confirmed for 26. This is definitely coming. And then to wrap up this bit, we're also going to add more ship variety and then new mission configurations. A lot of the ships at the moment are quite samey. There's not really a variety in weapon types and things like that. So when you're attacking certain ships, you probably get hit quite frequently with like just cannons or just rail guns or something like that. But to really sort of add a new twist to it and a little, I guess, element of difficulty, we're going to add in different like the damage type. So you might get hit by railguns and rockets or missiles or cannons or lasers at the same time, which will mean that you'll need to think a little bit more about your shield management and things like that when you're doing them. So that's combat missions. We've then got the exploration missions, which I know Mr. Tic Tac Jim is particularly excited about. So what are exploration missions? So they are lost signals, which are not going to be a point of interest or something that you can target. They are going to be something that is just a random spawn through space, which you can discover just by traveling around. You know, you could be flying to an asteroid, you could be traveling between planets, you could be flying out to a station, and you might stumble upon a lost signal. And essentially, what they are is space constructs with challenges. So I think Amiga's still here. He's been doing a lot of work on these. And essentially, what they're going to be is kind of like puzzle rooms and escape rooms and things like that, where you actually get rewards for completing them. So they're going to be varying difficulties with basic missions appearing nearer to the planets, and then the rare missions being further deeper in space. Obviously, the further out, the better rewards that you could potentially get. So completing puzzles and tasks to unlock special loot. That is a big TBC. We don't know what that is yet. But what I can confirm is going to be in there is unique recipes, which will mean that you'll be able to get different element variants that can only be unlocked by completing one of these puzzles or tasks or mazes or whatever else, and being the person to acquire that particular knowledge for that recipe. Which will mean that if you get it, you are basically going to be the go-to industry guy for whatever element this thing is. And then something else which we have not talked about anywhere is Settlers Radio, which is basically going to be an in-game system where you can play music, essentially. We've talked for a long time about having an actual Settlers Radio and things like that, and seeing if we can make like a space radio. But what this will do is basically give you the ability to go and get like collectible music notes to play a special track, song, whatever you want to call it, on this Settlers Radio. So it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be very unique. It's a fun twist rather than something that's really game breaking. But if you get one of these music notes and you know you can play it'll be something different. It'll be a collectible and things like that. So we'll see how that goes. Right. I think the one that everybody's been scratching around for a little bit, the new system, right? The new system is still in the works. I say it's still in the works because we've just been working on so much else, right? We've wanted to get the Twitch drops working. We've been trying to set up a lot of the infrastructure for everything that's going on over Christmas. And we've just run out of time, basically. We started looking into it. There is a proof of concept for a first planet. But unfortunately, without certain tools from NQ and people like that, we are having to learn as we go. So the new system is very much still in the works. We are currently still tweaking with values and things like that to try and make it optimized. But to talk a little bit about it, so we've built the tooling. I sort of talked about the planet pipeline generator and things like that, where we can create these completely custom planets instead of using the existing ones. There are going to be brand new materials, brand new recipes, brand new elements, with the addition of tier 6 items. So at the moment, obviously today you can only get up to tier 5, which is your exotics. There is going to be another further tier on top of that, which will it's just going to boost you to that next level, right? It's not necessarily going to follow the same NQ scaling. It might be slightly boosted, which will give a bit more build variety. But a key point to this is that the tier 6 items will not be usable by any player that has not visited the new system. So in order to get the knowledge on how to use these tier 6 items, and I keep using this get the knowledge, you're going to have to go and explore these new systems. You're going to have to go and find landmarks. You're going to have to go and find wrecks. You may have to go and find NPCs to speak to get this lost data to understand how these tier 6 items work. They are not something that the UEF created. They could potentially be alien parts. In order to use them, you need the knowledge, which means you're going to have to travel over there. So yeah, that is that. So the new system is not going to be charted. And what that basically means is that when you warp with the obelisk to this new system, there is not going to be anything on the map. You're not going to see any planets. You're not going to see any moons. You're not going to see any asteroids. It's all going to be completely uncharted, which means that the only way that you're going to be able to explore this new system is by working together. You're going to have to talk about the planets. You're going to have to talk about the landmarks. You're going to have to share positions and things like that. And I'm hoping what that does is brings in that element of exploration that I think that we've always been missing with the game. Everything was always given to us, right? We were given the gravities, we were given the planet heights and things like that on the map. It's not a case of us not being able to add them to the map, because we absolutely can. It just feels that it wouldn't be as exciting. So you have to go over there. You have to, go and chart it. You might go to a planet and it might have really high gravity. Not going to spoil anything, but the last point kind of does anyway. There are going to be planets that have above 1G. We've tested up to 15 Gs, just as an example. And it is a very, very different experience. So I'm hoping that everybody's excited for this. I would like to try and get at least 5 planets put together, maybe have a few moons and things like that. But they are going to be very, very different to the existing planets. There's going to be new characteristics. You're going to see different visuals. It's going to be very, very interesting. So please rest assured, it's still in the works. It is something that we are actively pushing towards. And I hope everyone's as excited as I am to finally get it done. Right. So this is going to be one that pulls people together. So global community events. And this is, as stated in the bottom right, very, very early discussions. So what are global community events? They are an expansion on the mission terminal focused around group collaboration, right? So what it is going to be is a participation-based system where players and organizations have to work together to complete per planet challenges. So at the moment, there's not a lot of reason other than to sort of collect ore to go to those outside planets. But our trail of thought is to sort of develop those planets, make them a bit more useful. What we could potentially do is offer a time-based buff or benefit for providing materials or elements or something else to those planets. So you might go over to Jago, and Jago might be classified as the mining planet, for argument's sake. And they will have an ongoing project, which will be one of these community events where they want to develop their mining systems or something like that. So in order to participate, you might have to donate mining units or parts to mining units or something like that. And when you reach a certain level, you will then unlock one of these time-based buffs, which will, Jago's the mining planet, potentially give you a bit of an increase to all of your mining units. So that is the premise of it. There will be different tiers of participation and things like that. So the solo player will probably not be able to reach the highest level of buff unless they are spending significant amounts of time invested to it. But something else to consider is that these global community events could also be something that run together. So they will run at the same time. So you might have to sort of discuss between you on what planet you want to get the buff from. Because if you get a mining buff from Jago and then you get an industry buff from Lacobus, for argument's sake, you know, some people are going to want one, some people are going to want the other. So I'm hoping it just sort of adds that extra element of engagement in there. Quality of life. So quality of life isn't always necessarily the most exciting thing to talk about, but it is actually one of those things that we've seen a lot of engagement through a couple of silly little features. So I know other servers have already got this, but would like to add something to add funds to multiple territories at once. So for those that have got a bunch of territories, you will be able to top them all up at the same time rather than having to cycle through a big list, which I think is going to be music to some people's ears. One of the ones that was literally asked for yesterday, I believe, is the swap elements on blueprint deployment. So when you come to placing a blueprint, if it's got basic parts and you want to add rare parts, this will be your opportunity to swap them over during the deployment. You'll be able to swap them over very much like you do with the voxels. So that is something that is partially done already, and that is confirmed. So we are going to get that out. This one's going to be interesting. The ability to rent additional core slots. So we do not want to add any more core slots to players through talents or anything like that. But what you will be able to do is, for argument's sake, pay so much quanta to unlock, let's say, another 50 core slots for a month. What that serves as is a bit of a quanta sink. And then also at the same time, it allows you to get something out of it. So if you're doing Rex or you're building something else with your community and things like that, people can contribute together to get those extra slots and build more essentially. So this is more of a bit of a pet peeve because I've read some of them recently and they drive me mad. But what I would like to do is go through and update a lot of the tooltips, the talent names, and just try and add in the missing icons. So I don't know if you've looked at the talents, how deeply you've looked at the talents, but a lot of them have just got their placeholder images when the images are actually available in the asset files and things like that. So I want to just try and, complete the game, make sure that everything's tied together and it shows all nice and shiny. Then I think this goes without saying, more custom skins for elements through the settlers signals, which is what obviously we called the collective for the drops events and things like that. Twitch drops events, fly-ins, and more. Additional voxel types and textures. So that is something that we're considering. And then I've just put at the bottom various other bits and bobs. Sometimes we hear a couple of suggestions that are thrown around in the chat and we go, oh, that could be a really good idea, and it's something relatively straightforward. Yeah, that is its own bucket, and we will see where we get to when it comes around. This isn't going to excite everybody, but for those that are more code inclined or play around with Lua, Jimbo is looking to build a settlers Lua framework. So what that will allow coders to do is to have a robust framework around Lua that can be used for new data streams that might not previously have been accessible. So just to give a couple of examples is the mission terminal data. So you can set up screens to plot pick up and drop off points for the dynamic missions and things like that. The salvage unit, you can maybe link a screen to Clive to see the progress and things like that. And then this, gambling. Everyone doesn't want gambling, right? But there's a possibility that we'll be able to enable proper lure to have casino games using Quanta. So games of chance using Quanta, strip poker, absolutely. But there's a lot more to this as well. We've talked about other things, and this was a sort of on the fly suggestion from Scissor Drift the other day, talking about how we can potentially like upgrade Lua from kind of like a repo system, like an over the air update to existing Lua and things like that. It's in the back of our heads now, so we'll be thinking about whether that's possible as well. Okay, so they are the updates for the roadmap. And then coming on to the branding and the website updates. So this isn't that exciting. So branding, as you've seen everywhere, we've updated the colors, we've updated the logos, we've got a shiny new font. What we're doing now is moving away from the original sort of like mascot logo, what I would call it, towards a more sort of ultra modern, simplistic logo. The color theme gives it the more sort of like futuristic cyberpunky feel. And we're moving away primarily because the original logo was actually the logo to a PAX Day Discord, which is something that Settlers was and isn't anymore. It's just progressive time to happen. So we are drastically changing the way that we market the game or the server. And I've done the legal diggings into this. But our tagline and what we are going to be marketing as moving forwards is, and I quote this officially, the Space Metaverse, right? We are the largest voxel based space metaverse on the internet. And I think that we need to own that title. And I think we need to use that and leverage that to pull in new players, players from other games, players that might be able to get excited about playing in a player created metaverse without all of the crypto bollocks, right? There's such a negative stigma around the word metaverse as it is. And I know that a couple of people that I've spoken to about this marketing have been like, oh, maybe don't use it. But it's an opportunity to ride that negative reputation and show that metaverse in itself as a term is not something that is inherently tied to crypto or anything like that. It is just an online world that is created by players, right? It's a sandbox. It's a second life, right? And we are going to run with that. We're going to own it. It is legal. I have checked whether we can legally call ourselves a space metaverse. We can, and we're going to run with it. Something else that's off the back of this, a couple of people have asked about this. I am going to be releasing a media pack for the Settlers with a couple of brand assets and the colors and things like that. For anybody that is doing content creation or wants to start pushing Settlers content either through YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you wish, that is going to be coming out very soon. And then the update to the website, this is not released yet. I've made pretty good progress on it, but it's a fully redesigned website. It's fully responsive. It works mobile all the way through to desktop with the new branding and the new messaging. There's going to be a news section in there to basically allow us to start showing the world the changes as well, because Discord is kind of a bit of a closed ecosystem in that sense. I'm also going to create what I'm calling the Institute section, which is going to be the sort of the next evolution of the guides, where we're going to migrate a lot of the content from Notion into the website to create things like new player guides and sort of explanatories around the new features, how to make your first million quanta, and things like that, just so everybody's got a point of reference for everything in a central place without having to sort of go between Discord and Notion and everywhere else. And then this is really nerdy stuff, but I put this in here anyway. So I have spent a lot of time ranking Settlers, MyDU, and Space Metaverse on Google to a point where my eyes are bleeding. And they are really going to be the key terms that we're going to be targeting next year. So yeah, that's all going to be pushing out. So we have come to the end of the presentation, and this is where I'm going to hope and pray that Discord works. And we are now going to move across to Q&A on the Discord. So unless I've really buggered something up, if I click this, which I have, and it's buggered it, 2 seconds. There we go. So we are now we're now going to move across from the Twitch chat into the in Discord chat. I'm not entirely sure that this is going to record my voice. You might get an echo on certain bits, but I'm going to have to unmute myself anyway. So let me unmute here, and then what we're going to do is open the floor for everybody to post some questions or to speak or anything else. So if you've got anything that you would like to talk about, you can sort of follow the instructions that were on the screen. There is a button at the bottom that says request to speak. And what it'll do is raise your hand inside the town hall, and then we can invite you to the stage. This is where it all goes very quiet. I can't believe we've not got a single question. Either I've done a fantastic job at explaining all of this, or I've bored everybody to sleep. Cool, Isaac. Let me come to that. I've left it open with that exact reason. The reason we didn't push for custom voxels for quite a long time is because the server asset loading on the old server wasn't great. It's still there. I've still got all of the files. So when you're ready, drop us a line. If we have small ideas like the BP element change on deploy, how should we communicate those ideas to yourselves? As I know you don't normally take ideas. Kestra, we have a fairly good idea on how we want to run it, and we have to be quite careful on how we do it. Because obviously with things like engines, where we've introduced the counterphase and the Vulkan engines, we can't swap things necessarily like for like, certainly with engines, right? As a prime example. But yeah, if you did want to pop a couple of notes together, feel free to stick a ticket in, and we'll have a look. How about a container hub that is only for data with a reach from anywhere in the solar system? So the reason we wouldn't do something global, and it's the same reason that we won't do global markets, is because it basically breaks that player interaction. I know exactly what you're referring to because I do keep tabs across all of the DU servers. But what, in my view, anyway, of course, what having something like that does is means that you can VR to a place, pick up a blueprint, stick it in that container hub, but you then don't have to actually visit that place. Visiting in VR is one thing, getting the blueprint and everything else, but if you actually have to go and visit someone's base, that's a lot more immersive than it would be to just VR over, grab a blueprint and come out. Hopefully that answers your question. Just have a quick check, see if there's anything else going on here. Buying in VR is amazing though. Buying in VR might be amazing, but it's very immersion breaking, right? If you can get everything so quickly, there's no real reason to interact with each other. We're very much about actively playing the game here. I don't know if the rework of the missions showed you that, but if you want to go and pick up someone's blueprint, we would much prefer you flew to their base. Go and explored a little bit, found out what they're up to, bought the blueprint there, because you never know, you might even see something new. Mr. Tic Tac Jim, future marketing campaigns. How can we as players help you? I would say the biggest thing that anybody can do to help us at the moment is to push out any form of content, whether that is on social media, whether that is on Reddit. Just keep showing off the stuff that you're building on the settlers, right? I think the server very much sells itself. And on the NQ Discord, there is a pool of 40,000 players, right, that originally bought into the game as alpha or have played throughout the MMO. It's an untapped market, right? There's a lot of people that don't understand that MyDU is still kicking about. A lot of people think that the game is dead and finished. So the best thing that you can do, honestly, is just keep pushing content. Post those pictures, right? Post the pictures of the ships that you're making with the custom colored voxels or the custom elements. And that's it. That's all I can really recommend. What else have we got? More avatar skins. So avatar skins are a bit of a contentious point because the avatar skins create a bit of a memory leak because of a bug that's still outstanding with NQ at the moment. We would love to do more avatar skins, and I think that you've probably all seen the golden robot, but it causes quite a bit of client side damage. So I'm not going to say never, but it is going to require NQ to fix something, and they have been very quiet recently. What that means, I don't know, but when I've certainly not had any support for a couple of weeks now. What's this? I'm not sure if this is a big deal, but I wanted to check. I have a friend that comes over and uses my laptop to log into his character. Does he have to change the login for the game before he joins the server? There we go. Jimbo's answered it. The data hub is only available in person, not in VR. It's for more. You get a planet scan, but forget the last planet scans. Data. Right. Okay. I'm not going to say no. I probably don't understand the ask fully. If it's just for territory scans, I would probably shy away from it, because the way that the ore pools are set up on here is that you get more ore on every tile, so you'd you'd spend a lot of time trying to find the perfect tile. It's not the same as the ore pools that come from NQ. They're all completely custom. So never say never, but that's something that I'll scribble down and we'll have a look at. I'm a newish player. How does refer a friend skins work? I've played a bit for a week and seen one skin. So the refer a friend skins are all time based. I don't off the top of my head have all of the values, but I can probably dig them out and have a little bit of a look. I think if you've got over a week's playtime, not just having your account for a week's playtime, you should have got something other than the programming board skins. But we'll have a look at that. MNC, pop a ticket in, and I'll have a look at that for you. Is there anything we can do about this infernal burn damage at slow speeds? Infernal burn damage. Tell me more, 1K. I may have missed this, but was a creator's site mentioned? Yes. I haven't talked about it on here. You've probably heard about it on voice, but I am going to try and build, don't know how successful I'll be, a settlers DU creators. So all of the people that are producing ships and constructs and Lua and everything else here have a place outside of Discord that is online to showcase all of their creations. Not everybody uses Discord, but everybody has the internet. So yeah, I'm not going to commit to it at the moment because I don't know how easy it is, and I want to do it in a secure way so people don't lose their accounts or get hacked and all of that sort of stuff, or post other people's constructs. So yeah, we'll see about that one. Right, just catching up. Have I missed anything in there? I don't think so. Get heat damage due to speed versus cross section. It's meant for re-entry burn, can be raised. 1K. I think that is something that is part of the core game code. I don't think that is something that could be edited on the server itself. They do all sorts of weird calculations with the atmosphere and things like that, but I don't think I've ever seen anything to do with burn speed. Yeah, I think that will only be available at the point when, if OpenDU comes about, we can look into tweaking things like that. When do you think the next fly-in event will be? So I think Jimbo and I spoke about this yesterday, possibly even, and I think the next fly-in event is going to be towards the end of January, and it is actually going to be in celebration of both mine and Jimbo's birthday because we share the same birthday. He's just a year older than me. So that is probably going to be last week in January. That is unconfirmed. So yeah, we'll see about that, but I think we can probably make something like that happen. And yeah, we'll get some sort of funky skins. I might even see if I can import a birthday cake element. We'll see. Is turn rate based on core size something you can change? If so, can you configure fixing it? Turn rate based on core size, from my understanding, is something that is in the core game code as well. That is not something we can change, unfortunately. Ikara, what's this? There are plans to introduce more nano-craftable elements, such as ores in different sizes. This to give more factories more life, for example, as voxel textures reach their limits in given areas. Are you asking about the batch sizes, Ikara? To craft ores such as the trees. So you can already craft the trees with the reward discs. Only optical ores. Akara, I'm not optical ores to place them in a factory. I mean, you can already place ores. You can grab a blueprint for the ore voxels from Market Zero and copy them out and use that there. I do at some point have the intention of adding in the voxel ores as actual voxels, but that is already possible if I think I'm following correctly. Just jumping around a little bit. Aborian. We're looking at more custom voxels. Are shaded glass-like voxels and water-like voxels possible? Unfortunately not. Jimbo's answered you, but we've spent nights and nights and nights on that. Can you change the preview image for the trees and such from just a cactus? Probably, but NQ did not provide those images. So if you want a bit of a pet project and you want to go around taking pictures of all of them, I can probably add them. Yes, work. This is delegation. This is how we get to where we are. Cool. Right. Jimbo's going back to Akara. We'll try and work that one out. Coal ice batch sizes might be nice, specifically if you can change based on the talent base. So we can't change the batch sizes based on the talent base, but what we know that we can do is change the size of the output. So for anyone that's got stuck with the pure oxygen voxels with the drop down, that was kind of a proof of concept that we put together to show that there is a possibility to add multiple recipes for elements. Obviously putting something together for that for however many thousand elements are in the game is a little bit unrealistic, but that is something that we can possibly target for certain things that might be useful. No, Amigo, I cannot hear Jimbo at all. He's actually muted by the looks of things. Is he now? Let's have a little look. Let's see if I've broken something. No, no, I cannot. Not completely sure what's going on there. Okay, so we are at the top of the 2 hours since we're starting. Has anybody got anything else that they want to talk about or raise? Perfect. Okay. In that case, I think that is the end of the presentation. Would there be any way to allow transfer units to transfer between cores? No, that is a hard limitation of the game. I'm not going to say never, but certainly in its current state and with the way that we need to try and keep the server performance, I don't think that's going to be possible. Brilliant. Okay, I am going to wrap up there then. I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody that has turned up. We've had an absolutely amazing attendance. Looks like everything is more or less been covered. I'll probably pick up with the other questions afterwards. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed the bit of the preview and the recap on last year. And I just want to say very much again, thank you to everyone that continues to play with us. We've got at least another year in us, unless something drastic blows up. So have a good one, and I will speak to you all soon. Thanks, everyone.